What's up everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Kareem from Afternerd.com, and today I want to talk about some of the questions that I get asked a lot, and I believe it's better for you to know the answers to these questions before you start learning Python. Specifically, these questions are: should you learn Python 2 or Python 3? When will you be able to get a job? How long does it take to learn Python? And what can you do with Python? So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, should you learn Python 2 or Python 3? A few years ago, I would have said learn Python 3, but at the same time, try to learn Python 2 as well. Or at least learn Python 3 and understand the differences between Python 3 and Python 2. And by the way, there are major differences between the two. And the reason for that is because Python 2 is very popular, and there are a lot of applications out there that are already written in Python 2. So you, as a Python developer, you might need to read Python 2 code or actually write Python 2 code yourself. However, as of January 1st, 2020, Python 2 has reached what we call an end-of-life maintenance. What that means is the maintainers of the Python programming language are telling you that they are no longer supporting Python 2. There will be no more security fixes, no bug reports, no new releases for Python 2. So if you're learning Python today, it's settled. Learn Python 3. Don't bother at all with Python 2 anymore because Python 2 is pretty much dead. All right, how long is it gonna take to get a job? This is actually a hard question. It's not easy to answer a question like that because it depends on a lot of factors, but I'll try to give it the best I can. First of all, there is a misconception that I want to clear up front. When you're learning Python, the objective here is not to be a Python programmer. The job that you're getting at the end of the day is not going to be a Python programmer or a Python engineer. There's nothing like that. It's a software engineer. So when you're learning Python or C++ or Java, the objective is to be a good programmer, a good software engineer, not just good in a programming language. This mindset is very crucial, especially if you are starting out. So understand that the reason why you're learning Python or any other programming language is because you want to be a good programmer. Your job opportunities is not limited by the language that you choose to learn. So keep that in mind. With that out of the way, I'll try to give you a roadmap for how I think the best approach is to be able to get a job. After you finish level 0 and level 1 in Python, and if you don't know what these levels are, I will link down below to another video that I made that talks about all the different levels in Python that will take you from being an absolute beginner to being proficient in Python. So if you're done with level 0 and level 1, the best approach here is to try to get an internship or a job at a small company so you can start getting practical, hands-on experience that is invaluable to your career and start honing your skills and applying all these pretty much theoretical classes that you've been to and the things that you've learned. At this stage though, it will be hard to get a job at one of the big tech companies because you're still not a good, well-rounded software engineer. You're just someone who basically knows how to code. You only learned how to write basic code and how to do object-oriented programming, which is crucial and it's important and you should be proud of yourself, but it's not enough. That doesn't make you a good software engineer as of yet. So to grow further, you really need to at least go up to level 4 to be able to actually target one of these bigger tech companies. You can start, getting interviews and hopefully getting a job eventually. But being a good software engineer is not just about being proficient in a programming language. Being a good software engineer means you are definitely good at programming, but you also have fundamental concepts in networks, fundamental concepts in operating systems, data structures and algorithms, and so on and so forth. So the answer to this question is, it really depends on you. It really depends on how fast you learn. If you get to this level fast enough, then you are more than ready to start, applying and hopefully you're gonna get that job. And that takes me to the next question. How long does it take to learn Python or to learn the levels that we discussed before in Python? Again, this is one of the questions that depends on a lot of factors. For example, how much time you have in a day to dedicate to learning Python, or how fast of a learner you are, how fast do you learn new concepts. So there doesn't exist an answer that will fit everyone, but I'll try to give you a general non-scientific estimate about how long I think it will take to learn Python. So if we're talking about level 0 and level 1, if you are proficient in another programming language, if you're coming from, let's say, C++ or Java, and you're starting to learn Python, I would give it maybe like 2 weeks to a month max to learn level 0 and level 1. The reason is Python is much easier than other programming languages out there. So if you're already proficient in other programming languages, Python is going to be a piece of cake for you. If you're an absolute beginner and Python is your first programming language ever, I would give it from 3 to 6 months. And the reason why it's taking that long, because you really should master these concepts. Remember that at this level, or at these 2 levels, you're not just learning Python, you're learning programming concepts in general. So give yourself some time to absorb and internalize these concepts. And I think on average, it will take you from 3 to 6 months to actually master the concepts in these 2 levels. For levels 2, 3, and 4, I would say give yourself somewhere from 6 months to a year, and sometimes even longer than that, because at these levels, you're not just learning Python, you're actually learning fundamental computer science concepts as well. For example, networking concepts, distributed systems concepts, operating systems, and data structures and algorithms, okay? So this will take time. This doesn't happen overnight. So be aware of that and plan accordingly. And like I said in the beginning, it really depends on how much time you have in a day to dedicate to learning these things. And it also depends on how fast you learn. All right, let's say you already learned Python. What can you do with this programming language? Python is a generic programming language, which means that you can use Python to pretty much do anything you want. So if you're worried that learning Python is going to box you into a specific domain, don't worry about it. However, Python really excels at specific applications. For example, numerical analysis and data visualization. There are a lot of libraries in Python that are very popular in that specific domain. For example, NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib. All of these are libraries that are very popular, very heavily used in that domain. Another thing is machine learning. If you want to be a data scientist, it's one of these cool things these days. Everyone wants to be a data scientist. So if you want to be a data scientist, Python is your language. For example, one library that is very popular in the machine learning domain is scikit-learn. And even if you want to write web applications, libraries like Django and Flask can help you do that. Another thing you can use Python for is as a scripting language. For example, you can automate some of the things that you do day to day using Python. So instead of going to something like Bash, for example, you can use Python, which is, in my opinion, much easier. I would choose Python over Bash every single day. So yeah, these are the things that are on the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure there are many other applications that you can use in Python. But like I said, Python is a generic programming language, so you can just use it to do whatever you want. Cool. I hope you have a clear understanding now of what the expectations are before you dive in, and I'll see you in the next video.